Welcome, brothers and sisters, to this broadcast. Mark DeJesus and Melissa DeJesus are in the house.
We are here.
Ready to bring some insights and perspectives from our healing journey to yours. Yeah. So we pray our conversations helpful and beneficial to what's happening. And if it is, please go to markdejesus.com and subscribe to our email list to get updates on new materials, resources. There's a free ebook you can get, plus a topics page, course page, books, all kinds of stuff for your mental, emotional, and relationship health. Please be sure to subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube or wherever else you're watching it, on Rumble or anywhere else, and be sure to click the notification button in YouTube so that you're updated for any lives and any updated broadcasts. So with that said, we've been on this healing journey, and recently I've been doing a lot of work on the subject of perfectionism and helping people to understand the very deceptive workings of this mindset that I've been saying over and over again, just right, but never enough. Right. And as of recent, I've been getting more into the shame of it, of how perfectionism and shame work together. And then this combo of shame and abandonment issue. And I feel like I'm on a whole nother level. That's not even a word, another. I'm on another.
You're on another.
Whole nother.
This
is a whole nother. I'm on a whole nother level of healing that I feel I'm going through. Realization. I feel like I'm reading books and reading things, and I'm like, wait a second, I've read this before, and I'm seeing it with a new lens. That's usually realization. It's time for new themes, not necessarily new themes, but new aspects of healing. And this perfectionism, shame, and abandonment connection is a real deal. And so I pray that where we go and where we talk and share, because I know that you and I have had a lot of conversations about what this means for us, what it's meant for our healing, and it's been very, very helpful, very illuminating. So
yeah, I would almost say, I don't want to be definite about it, or definitive. Excuse me. Definitive. But okay, the last two videos that you did this week have literally been the story of my life. And I watch all your videos. I try to anyways, in between kids and house stuff or whatever, but in our life. But I pretty much watch all of them, and I just couldn't get enough of the ones that you did this week.
Yeah.
They were so good. Even right. And I am not a big note taker. I'm not like a good little student like Mark has been his whole life. I'm usually not like that. And I really felt compelled, especially from Monday's video over shame. It's the story of my life. And so we felt like that we've been, just as you were sharing, in a deeper season of how our journey is taking us, how we're looking at things, re-looking at things, letting our heart be healed. We felt like, okay, this would be cool. Since these videos have blessed me so much, we want to kind of go over them and share how this aspect has affected our own journey. Because
you and I have different nuances to how this manifests. And so that's really interesting. And I think that can be something to bless people with, in the sense of I have certain patterns that I go into, the way that perfectionism has sought to operate, to be my way of relating to myself, God, and my world around me, to feel safe, to feel in control, to feel I'm okay, and not realizing it's a trap. And then you've had your own ways of relating that. And underneath both is shame. Right. Underneath both is a sense of, if you see the real me, if you see the flawed me, you will reject me. You will withhold love from me, and that inflames that abandonment. It's awful. And I think that I cannot emphasize this enough. I think the deepest place of pain amongst all our battlegrounds, it takes time for people to understand this, is that abandonment thing. You're going to leave me. You're going to reject me. God will leave me. God will reject me. And we also leave ourselves. That's a whole subject in itself. What do you feel like when you were watching the video on the shame attacks? Because I found this term interesting. I actually read it in the big book that's in Adult Children of Alcoholics.
Mm-hmm. So good.
There's so much in there that I go, oh, this is what the church, ought to be really equipped in helping people in, because there's so much what they talk about. It's taking AA to I believe to the next level. And he just mentioned the term in passing, and I have this tendency where I have springboards of thought. Somebody would just say a sentence, somebody would just say a word or something, and it will, in a good way, springboard me into this whole panorama. And I felt like this whole thing opened up about people having shame attacks. It's different than like a panic attack, but yet debilitating, something we want to avoid at all costs. So anyways, what was the aspect of that you could say, I don't mean to put you on the spot, that stuck out for you the most? That was like, okay, you said the story of my life, which I feel is the story of my life too. What part of it was helpful in identifying?
Well, when you make the statement of like, okay, what makes heart healing so difficult? That has been a question in my life for a very long time. So I felt like in many different seasons, I went, okay, yeah, I grew up in an alcoholic home. Okay, yeah, my mom and dad, this and that, and could kind of label things. But there was always this difficulty in my own journey of really landing in, okay, these are areas I need healing in. I really struggled with that. And since you and I, we've gone through different phases, and I could go through different times where, the Father's love was important and all these other things. But I've hit this real precipice of digging deeper. And you have mentioned it to me a lot. And it was not really until I had to recognize it myself in understanding how deeply abandonment happened in my life. Because I went, well, my parents were around. I looked at it from a very basic understanding. Okay, yes, my father had this issue, my mother had this issue. Those are the things that affected me. But it was still very much a self-blaming, I'm the problem, I just need to get right. Not really understanding what was kind of underneath it all. And this aspect of the abandonment, shame, it's rocked my world in understanding how I operate.
Yeah.
What I operate out of.
That connection of perfectionism, like that, the perfectionism, shame, abandonment, that perfectionism, shame thing, the just right but never enough, and shame, they combine to dismiss pain. Yeah. To dismiss it. It's like you were just saying, I go, yeah, alcoholic home. It's like, whoa. Whoa. No, pause. That's a whole
litany of things underneath that.
Yeah, that's years of a healing journey. That's a life of healing right there on that subject, right?
Right.
Not to create overwhelm.
No.
But it's like this is a whole area that branches out, and it is the nature of shame where we shame ourselves over stuff that we've gone through, and then it's like a dismissal, constant dismissal. It doesn't let us actually acknowledge the pain for what it is,
right?
To see how it influenced.
Right. And in growing up in a home where never really knowing that I was loved properly, it gave room for a litany of mindsets to come in. I had no one telling me that I was a precious daughter and I was loved and I was safe, and all of those things, they were not set. So early on, condemnation, guilt, people pleasing, like all the things that you laid out are just very crucial. It's very important to understand in your journey of how we are relating to ourselves and the world and God. It's very important. And I cannot emphasize enough. I think if you were blessed by the video, re-listen to it a couple times, because I do think for me it takes a couple times. I go, okay, I get that. Because it's honestly, and we can get to this at the end part of a takeaway of really giving myself grace. But it helps me to understand that and what I'm operating in.
Yeah,
and why it's there.
Keep going. What else?
Okay, well, I have notes, everybody. Okay, I have some notes. And I honestly would love it too. I asked Mark to just bear with us. And I wanted to just listen to a couple snippets and talk about the video. So if you could,
where do you want me to pull it up?
I always love this and wanted to do this in other podcasts, and this is the first time I get to do it. If you could, please go to the 3 minute and 50 second mark.
Okay, let's see here. 3 minute 50 seconds. I gotta listen to myself talk here.
If you could, and it's only for like till 4 minutes and 20 seconds. I'll tell you when to stop.
Okay. I'm gonna go right before it. Okay. Yeah, right here. I think it's up on the screen here too, so people can see it.
If I was to get to the root issue, the root core issue of all the roads and struggles and all battles, and I wrote this here on the board, all brokenness leads to abandonment. What makes healing very challenging is this issue of abandonment, because we were all made to be loved, to be in connection, to belong, to be affirmed, to be validated. It's built within the framework of who we are. And so we are meant to get that from God. We're meant to also get that relationally as we interact with each other. And those of us that have had these brokenness issues and our mental health struggles, there is a shame perspective that partners with abandonment and inflames this. Shame takes abandonment and makes it this pulsating nerve that if you touch it, it explodes.
You can stop if you want. Okay. First of all, I just love when you teach. I love it. And I'm partial because you're my husband, but I love it. But I love the way that you break down things. And I think this is important because there are people that have been straight up abandoned. But I think a lot of us who grew up with mother or father, or both parents in the home, we don't recognize what abandonment really means. So even if you could just it can come in all forms.
Yeah. I think the biggest one that takes time to recognize is the abandonment of neglect, of emotional neglect.
Yeah.
So that is, I'm here physically and I might be giving you meals, but I'm ignoring the needs of your heart. I'm ignoring emotions and helping you navigate them. And so we're living in a emotional nutrition deficiency. We think of like nutrition, being deficient of vitamin D or being deficient of magnesium, and that'll affect your physical health. I would say the emotional, mental health of our life is depleted and deficient when we are not fed the diet that then helps us to do that. So I think when perfectionism comes into play, you don't see, and shame is there, you don't see this, how it rises up, because you don't see what the real pain is. So going back to what you were saying, abandonment can happen in a lot of forms where the parent has left, right? Single parent homes. A lot of times it's fatherless homes. We have a plague of fatherless homes. So he's not there physically and emotionally. Then he's there, but he's not there, right? Or he's there and he's either directly doing things that are stirring up this sense of conditional love, which conditional love says, if these metrics are not met, love will be withdrawn from you. And then there's the one that was, that I think is probably the most deadly, is the abandonment of neglect. Just not tending, not acknowledging. I say this to people in coaching sessions. Like, if I was an evil, psychotic person and wanted to torment you and erode you as quickly as possible, erode your mental state, emotional state, just isolate you, just put you in a room alone and neglect your existence.
Right.
That's all. Like, we think of like torture, that's terrible. Right. But you're still actually interacting with a person, even though they're very malevolent, and just sick or evil or whatever. But when it's you by yourself and you're in a isolation chamber of your own thoughts, you will automatically default to this is my fault, something I've done wrong, you'll default to that. You'll default to, I'm here because of something I did, you'll become a massive inner critic to yourself, and it will spiral everything. So that's why I find in the healing journey of people's lives, there is nothing more powerful than relationship healing. We were having a discussion, if you don't mind me going on a tangent.
No,
we were having a discussion yesterday about this because we've interacted with a lot of techniques in ministry and psychology, right? There's a litany of trauma approaches in psychology. There's this thing, there's that thing, there's this thing, there's that thing, right? In Christianity, we've seen there's inner healing circles of this, of that, modalities and this thing. And each one promotes itself as like the
answer,
the thing that's going to help everyone. And what I've noticed is the common thread in every single area. People will point to the technique, and I like to take a step back and I go, is it the technique, or is it that there was an exchange of two human beings that God used to bring relational healing, where someone felt safe?
They felt listened to. They felt heard. They felt seen.
All the stories I've heard have had that in common.
Yep.
It may have been a prayer moment, but it was a prayer moment where somebody in care, in love, took time for somebody. It may be counseling sessions. It may be a program somebody went through. It may be our breakthroughs make us want to point to the technique, but really you somehow felt loved. There was an opening of love exchange. Now, truth sets us free, right? So truth can unlock that, but truth works in love, speaking the truth in love. It requires a loving atmosphere for it to have its power.
Right.
So my point being is that abandonment brings out relational disconnect, where it's just a disconnect somewhere in the journey, or layers of disconnect, and that abandonment just inflames that even more.
And I want to share with people too the combination that you shared in the beginning of what abandonment can be: physical, somebody leaving, single parent home. I experienced all the combinations in the state of 0 to 18 and leaving the house. My parents were married, divorced, married again, divorced again. My mom had us, then my mom left, all of us, and then my dad came back in with his struggles. So I had all the combinations. And I still looked at it like, well, my parents, at some point they were either there together or I had one of them. I was very naive to this for a very long time. And, years ago, I was having a conversation with my sister about a certain point in our time and in our life, and she said the word abandoned. And that was the beginning of my journey of understanding that. She saw it for what it was, where we had been abandoned.
Right.
And it hit me like a lead sled. For various reasons, because as most of us can relate, we blame ourselves, right? We're constantly looking of what do I have to fix? What do I have to fix, right? And there's that journey of healing your heart and your accountability, of your journey. But there's this important piece of looking back and recognizing and understanding what we come from, that I was so numbed out to, just so numbed out to. And this has been an important piece because, linking the abandonment, my entire processing mind was run, and I'm still in a journey of healing this, literally run through the filter of shame. If I have an off conversation with someone and I don't think it landed properly, I'm ruminating because I'm in shame over how come I didn't represent myself well. It literally goes back to just never having a good regulation on how I see myself, because I was never given that. Right. I was literally in a home with parents, but I was not equipped with anything. So I was left to my own devices. So this area of shame, I love how you talk about it. There's so many points, and I could literally have you stop and pull out every single thing. But there's a part of I feel like where shame just really steals where you're present, and where I love how you bring out all those points of keeping busy. I could bawl. I'm preventing myself from bawling.
That's all right. All right.
Because I recognize that even where I'm working through it now, and I do it with you and the kids in processing myself. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to stay busy. And I've talked about this in other podcasts, and you guys can go back and pull out some of those, especially where we talk about our personal struggles. I
was going to say, talk about it again.
I'm so wrapped up, and it's funny too. After the fact, I can recognize what I did and where it's stolen. But when you're stuck in that moment, and you're ruminating and you're spinning about yourself over whatever incident, and I go to my obsessive compulsive reactions to try to cope and distract from really just going, Missy, I had to learn to practice, like, put my hand on my heart. I don't know if you've heard me in the shower, but I'll literally out loud, you're okay? You're okay?
Yeah.
You're okay. You didn't know. You didn't know. You weren't given it. And over silly things too, from decisions I made that impacted my life to even silly things that I have shame over. Conversations with people. How did you come? Where I just beat myself and beat myself and beat myself. And it's this piece that we've had to really look at in our life. It's been so illuminating and so helpful. But I got to be honest, it's hard.
Yeah, it is. And
take it for a second while I get a tip.
Well, it's hard because it's foreign. It's a foreign thing to start relating to yourself kindly.
Absolutely.
When shame taught us our whole life, just harsh. And then my Christian journey affirmed that. Yeah, really.
Right.
God's really working on you. It's like, I'm getting beat up. Yeah, God, no, that's the Holy Spirit. And I think what you're describing is that's a Selah moment. What you were sharing there of how you were talking to yourself. When you said, "I'm in the shower." And I was like, wait, are you talking about you or me? Because I do the same thing.
I know, we both do.
I have great conversations.
I have a habit of that.
Well, I began to learn how to, this is the process of parenting yourself, reparenting, re-relating to yourself. God is in the part of the healing process is he's bringing us back together because I see in your notes down here.
Yeah, if you could play that.
Shame teaches you to
abandon yourself.
I was sneaking a peek at the notes.
Onto my notes.
The core reason why we all need relationship, mentoring, teaching work is we become separated and divided amongst ourselves. The Bible says a house divided cannot stand, right? We think of that literally, or we apply that to church, or we apply that to our family, but you don't apply that to yourself. And when the Bible talks about healing the broken heart, that broken heart speaks of a shattering, like pieces. And some people talk about the aspect where you've become just separated from yourself. We're trying to use terms to just describe this, right?
This is great because you do talk about,
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So so then you become at odds with yourself. You become, there's animosity that you have.
It's kind of where we get the term like your own worst enemy in a way. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's in multiple angles.
Yeah.
So when it's shattered, like if I take a glass and just shatter it, it's all these pieces all fighting with each other. Right? So it's not just you critiquing you over your writing or critiquing over your talking. It's like, it's just all these areas that are just like self versus self. And, part of the healing process is seeing yourself the way that God sees you, because he's very kind, he's very gentle, very compassionate, of like, I'm not going to be abandoned to myself anymore. And so I learned this kind of in a side door process where I was learning like the importance of loving myself. And I hear these people talk about speaking your words out of the heart, speak, right? So speak these things, like, and it gets into like name it and claim it, whatever like that. But there is power, to our words, right? And I was like, what is it like if I took that and applied it to myself? what if I like took and I actually spoke to what if I actually spoke things to myself that I wish other people would, or I wish I could sense, and that began an interesting journey of, I'm learning how to re-relate to myself. Mm-hmm. And I think that's been a big theme of you and I in different ways, but yet the same, because we both have just right perfectionism.
Yes, we do.
Both have, these are ways I'm going to feel better.
Right.
And it's not black and white where they're all evil things. They're distorted. Cleanliness gets distorted, but cleanliness is a good thing. Order is a good thing, but it gets distorted. Right. Living right is good, but it gets distorted. It's more about like we're just disturbed.
Right.
And shame keeps us in that disturbance, right? So, anyway, I forgot where I began with
No, but I want to say, because I just had a thought about when you're talking about the journey of like being able to love yourself and speak words to yourself. I think because the one thing that I'm very grateful for, that's a very precious part of our journey, is that we've both been in a lot of these seasons, sometimes at different times, but together with how we encourage each other. And I definitely feel like there's been times earlier in our marriage where you try to love on me and it's like, meh, really? You do? Kind of like could not, like it hit a brick wall. As I've recognized all these things, been able to go, okay, I want to for people to understand, I can't receive love. I can't. Okay. You got to start the process of like really being able to love on yourself, receive that, understand God's love for you, because now when you do, and we exchange those words for each other, I'm able to receive it.
Right. Yeah.
It's all a process.
You're opening up the well.
Because I want to encourage people. It just doesn't work amazing because Mark's amazing and we're doing that. It's right.
Yeah. It's not about amazing at all. I run into this a lot with OCD, and because you and I both have our journey of OCD, and I help a lot of people. This unconditional love is the theme for the obsessive compulsive. That is their core. It's tied into this abandonment, shame, perfectionism thing, right? And when I drill down to that, every time it brings out this system here. I had a slide. Hold on. Let me just
get the slide. Yes.
Wait,
I love the slides.
Where is it? I'll just put it up there so that
Please
you can.
Please do.
So if I point that, there we go. I point that way.
Oh no, that way.
See how it's weird?
Right.
Like you don't know. And
I know,
you look up at the camera.
I got to look up there to see.
Which way is so there. So you try to express or bring about the need for unconditional love. All this rises up, and they have these constant yeah buts, that like it makes the obsessive very dodgy about what they need. And it reveals they're uncomfortable with being loved. Yeah, but what about this? What if I've committed this sin? What if it's the unpardonable sin? What if I was never saved? What if I'm a sexual deviant? What if I'm what about this? What if that? What about my past? What about this? Right? It's all just dodging.
Right.
Because shame, and because if you see what I've done and really see it, because I'm panicking right now, then you're going to tell me I'm unlovable. It's like there's this thing in us screaming out, tell me that I'm unlovable. Just say it and be done with it, right? It's like this, like just tell me that I'm the worst person and just get it over with and just abandon me, all right? Just get it over with. And it's revealing how bad our hearts are just in such need. Yes,
and if you could, I would love for you to bring up just one more little clip, which I think leads to this, which is something that I was an excellent person in about despair. So if you could go to the 14-minute.
This is like surprise.
I know you didn't know what I was going to do today. I don't remember 14
minutes even?
Yeah, right. You could start. Yeah.
Okay, and then you tell me when to stop.
I call despair like the emotional...
Oh, wait, go back just a little skosh. I'm sorry. My timestamp must have been off because it was off in the first one too. 4:40. 50.
Love.
13. Okay.
Yeah. I feel this for my journey. I feel this for so many people that I interact with and help. So there's bipolar, there's borderline personality disorder. There's just some mental health markers just to point out. There's this aspect of despair. Mm-hmm. Okay. I call despair like the emotional lever that gets pulled and like a trap door opens up. And you just free fall. that kind of feeling, that helplessness that happens, right? So it affects us in that way. And sometimes it helped me to realize this is what's happening. This is what's going on. I don't need to compulsively try to fix it. I don't need to react to this. I'm going to let God love me through this ride. And part of letting God love me through is I'm not going to feed this. I'm aware of it. And many of us just need to be aware. What's happening in this moment is really about my history. It's not even about the person in front of me. It's about my history. It's not even really about the moment. The moment symbolizes something in my history, which leads us to this one, which is a trauma reaction.
So where do you go with that? Tell me what it brings up for you, because I know exactly in that moment what it's bringing up for me.
It brought up like how I handled everything. So it's like the stages of everything, the shame, the guilt, everything, and then I don't know how to climb this mountain anymore. I'm just going to go into pity and despair. So all the other stuff.
What is it? Well, what is it? Be more specific. Like what is it?
In which part? The despair or
that section? History? What does it bring? Because I have a moment.
Okay.
That it brings up.
Really?
Or a series of moments that have the same thing. What does it bring? Does it bring us a specific pattern for you that you could?
Okay, it brings out my patterns of where I have all of these things that happen, the spinning, the spiral, the moods. I go straight into despair, but it gives the second part of that in paying attention to the history. It's about the history. It gives context for me. It helps me. So all the other stuff illuminates how I behave, what I've operated in.
So you're talking about in a relational moment? Are you talking about when you're with people or when you're by yourself?
Everything, how I relate to myself and how I relate to people.
Right.
It is giving me context that it's about the history, and in that going, okay, just like I referenced, girl, you weren't given it. You weren't given it. The history there is you weren't equipped. Missy, you weren't equipped.
I'd like to.
If you could expound, sir.
Well, I'd like to pull a specific example is where I'm going with with because I feel this affects me in social moments where I'm interacting and I feel misunderstood or I feel ignored or unheard. Those are two wounds from childhood. So I compulsively, if I feel misunderstood, and I see it all the time with people I talk to, they struggle with this too. Mm-hmm. If I feel misunderstood, I feel an immediate need to explain. And then I'm over-explaining. Mm-hmm. I'm exhausting myself. And then they're not even getting it anyways.
I think a lot of people can relate to that.
So it's just like, why am I even doing this? But the ignored one goes right down to like, elementary school. It goes right to there, especially if I feel like I'm sharing something. So like I could, it could be as simple as I'm sharing something important and somebody asks a question and then you responding back. I'll look at the camera and do this, what I'd say. And I'm the person listening while I'm there, talking to the person.
Yeah. And they don't,
And it's like,
or they're like,
yeah, and then
so how was the grocery store yesterday? You're like, what?
So what I don't realize is I may be bringing up something that's actually making them uncomfortable because it's dealing with emotions and things.
Yes.
Because then what happens is all of a sudden the person gets like very like they're paying attention. They ask, and as you travel down what you're sharing, it's like all of a sudden they're aware of everything else. Hey, sorry, the waiter was just, like everything becomes a big distraction. And it would hit me in this rejection kind of place. And then I feel this, so the door comes out from underneath the trap door.
Yep.
And then I'm,
that's so good.
Right?
So good.
And so, so I'll go, I gotta get out of here. I'm going to hyper speed my wrap it up skills and get out of here.
We talk about wrap it up skills.
So because what I want people, because I have, there's so many videos in my teachings and I'm coming from my standpoint, but you have nuances that I want people to understand. Mm-hmm. So where would you, so in that moment when I'm sharing that, like what kind of situation comes up for you?
A specific situation. I think I have a lot, boo. I have a lot. I think mainly for me, where I ruminate and destroy myself. A good. All right, I'll let people into my little world. I have a big problem that after I've had conversations with people, yes, I understand. I have this too when I'm in the moment, but for me, it hits after, where I then beat myself up after.
Right.
Okay. This happens to me a lot. I'm in process with this, people. This is a major one for me to work on and how I beat myself up.
Well, I relate, and a lot of people relate to this.
And how I beat myself afterwards, that I didn't come across a certain way, or I'm projecting what they think about me, and da-da-da-da-da, and the list goes down. And the trapdoor, as you're referring to, happens. And I literally go into despair. Nothing's ever going to get better. Relationships are never going to get better. I'm still struggling. Like, I just go into like the deep, dark pit.
All right, so this is good. This is really good. Now,
gosh, you had to push me a little bit on that one.
So, well, it shows I'm having mid-game
you have it in the moment.
reactions. You have post-game.
I have it. Yes. I'm the post. Yes.
Which the post-game can almost be the worst, because like if you watch a football game or something, like ESPN, they spend days reviewing a moment. Right?
Oh, I could not.
He should have done this. Well, if I was in that,
Right.
he should have looked left, and he was really not present. Like, really, he's in the middle of a moment, just instinctively acting.
Right.
It really, they really like everybody becomes an expert, and I feel like that's what happens in the post. Is like you have all these Monday morning quarterback. Well, if you just are securing yourself, you just would be able to, or if maybe you should have said that. So I relate to. What you're sharing a lot, which is after or even after I go through this, after I've filmed a talk, that it's like I'll feel a compulsion to redo it, go back and edit it, say this, I didn't cover this, and it's all this. It's like shame attack material.
Yeah.
Of like, I'll get it right, fix, because then what, Mark? Because then it'll be just right. And my presentation is okay.
Yeah.
And I'm safe now. So it's all just a bunch of baloney. It's a lie, but it's easy to believe that. So I love this example, because in the moment I go, I want to get out of here. Mm-hmm. It's like a survival moment. I feel like the after effect.
Yeah.
It's like
here's the thing too, that it
rough.
steals. When I'm interacting with somebody and they're being lovely and kind, and we're having a volley. When I destroy myself afterwards, it takes away the value of what I had with the person.
Right.
It really is. It's not valuing what I can't see that. My shame and abandonment, like my brain was so trained into, you're not worth discussing to, you're not worth talking to, you're not worth paying attention to. I see everything. Even though that's not what was coming at me, my brain looks at it later and goes, they don't want to talk to you again. They don't want to see you. And I see it very distorted.
So it becomes your reality, right? It becomes then now how you see.
Right.
So then we can create these scenarios. This person doesn't like me. They're against me. And it's a whole offshoot that's not even true.
Correct.
If it is, whatever,
Right.
we have to learn how to accept, okay, they feel that way about me. But this goes way beyond that. It's like we create this altered universe. What do they call that in the Marvel movies? The universe.
Multiverse?
The multiverse.
I have a multiverse in my mind.
Yeah, when they started talking about the multiverse, I was like, I'm out.
You were out.
I'm out.
You're this is
so
stupid. Yeah.
So you create this whole multiverse of characters in how you see yourself. It's very anti-love. It's shame-filled, but it's all we know. So then we feed that, and now it becomes our filter by which we do relationships.
Right. So what has been, I would like to share my very simple takeaway for how I've had to work on this. What has yours been? What What is just a simple nugget to give to people? I know you've done a video on it. There's a whole video, everybody, you can go look at.
Well, I'll kind of appendix it a little bit and add on. I think what's helped me is how I interpret where I'm at, what I'm thinking, and what I'm going through. I've had a terrible interpreter. I'll doing all these videos, yelling at everybody to fire their interpreter.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. It's
because we go through it, right?
I have a way where I'll very much exaggeratingly spiral. So like out of this shame attack here, I will spiral into a very disempowering interpretation of where I'm at. And it will then lead me to conclusions that are unfruitful. So it's like, oh my goodness, I do a lot of studying in mental health, right? Research and stuff. And it could be like, oh my goodness, maybe I'm that, and maybe I'm, this. And so then it'll spiral me into that kind of catastrophizing, right? So I interrupt the story with love. I interrupt it when I feel the eruption, because that trail leads nowhere for a lot of reasons. It's built in shame, but it doesn't make us sober, right? So like if you make a mistake with your parenting and you go, oh my goodness, this is because I've had this. This is terrible, and this is gonna happen to Abby. She's gonna grow up and she's gonna have these problems, right? There's one aspect where like you're over and you're shooting way off. But there's another part, you're not leaving any room for humanity. Okay, so if she has issues, are you gonna control things? You're gonna that's gonna make things worse too. But I invite the loving, compassionate narrative that brings me into sobriety. So now I'm using the situation with Abby. Now I see Abby through love more stabilized versus panic.
Correct.
Because what happens is in a shame attack, we see our issue out of context. So now I'm blowing this thing up. And it's like, this problem, maybe I'm doing, it's like, nurture, Mark, it's all right. It's all right. You're blowing things out of proportion. And even if, you're going to be okay.
Right.
Right? What if this thing happened in our life, in our family, and it's going to scar our kids? And okay, well, we'll deal with it then. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because then there's a form of loving redirection, but also like exposure therapy too. Of like, okay, I'm not in control. I can't live with this control mechanism, which feeds all that perfectionism, all the stuff I put on the top that I have room to even put all the other things.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it's the narrative, pausing, interrupting what I'm under, and just fueling. It is okay that I'm not okay. So if I go back in that meeting. Now I'm outside the meeting, and the Monday morning quarterback critique is coming in. It's all right. And even if I did act goofy, or maybe if they even saw that I was goofy, that's okay.
Right. Well, I'll hook on that on the part of, if they saw me being goofy, or if I didn't come across okay, I kind of have to, that's my end game.
Yeah. You're
for me though,
you're good at bringing that out.
I have to really work hard on giving myself nurture, where I, showed you, like putting my hand on my chest, Miss, you're okay. Paying attention. I like the pay attention to what historically my mindset goes to. Okay, you're shaming yourself. I can't analyze the situation until I've kind of regulated myself with nurture. I have a hard time like going, okay, did they react looking at the situation and go, did they look at you like you were crazy? No, I can't do that until I have really regulated myself with some loving kindness and nurture. I have to start with that first.
You got to sober up, as I say.
Yeah.
Which I use that beyond just where people typically think.
Yeah.
It's like, we're not in denial. We're not spiraling. We have to land and see, okay.
Yeah.
Because then we go, well, what could I learn?
Right.
You know, what it's just, it's so much more fruitful, because then you could see like, hey, you know, they weren't the easiest to talk to. Not that I'm blaming them, but it helps me to see.
Right.
Well, I was so focused on myself. I realized, yeah,
Exactly.
they're goofy too. And
Right.
it's
And
all
maybe
right.
they're spinning like I'm spinning. Who knows, right? I had to do that a lot to myself.
Then you realize you spin,
like we're
we
all
spin.
going through stuff, right?
Yeah,
You spin, I spin, we spin.
We all spin.
Right.
Gosh. What is that? I scream, you scream.
We all scream for ice cream.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's what it is.
I absolutely love this, and I think that everyone should go watch your video.
Thanks for letting me. Thanks for letting me pull out the specifics in it, because I think that the feedback I get from people, and tell me if I'm wrong, y'all, the feedback I get from people is like they appreciate the teaching, but they really appreciate the nuances of what you bring out to it that are not exactly the same as mine, different flavors of it. And I want people to be able to, speaking of ice cream flavors, be able to have, you know, a palette of what this journey looks like.
I appreciate that people write in the feed. I see on your Sunday Night Lives, people really appreciate when we share our personal struggles. And we've had to get to this point. It's scary to share that stuff. But our podcast was created on what we said from the beginning, our kitchen table conversations, and this is what we're going through. And I just felt like, wow, the root of abandonment and shame attacks video that you did on Monday, and please go search that out on YouTube. It's really good, and I think a lot of us can relate to it. So I felt like it would be great to talk about, hey, in real time, that's what we're going through.
Yeah. So. I think it's important for us to take time to have conversation, reflect on these things that.
Yeah, and I would love to do another video, because there's another video that I feel like would be great to talk about too.
That's great.
Yeah.
If this is a blessing, subscribe to our email list, subscribe to us on YouTube and Rumble, and I appreciate all the prayers, all the loving support. It's a real honor to speak into your life. So we look forward to more future resources and materials, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. But this is your brother from another mother and sister from
another mister.
That's it.
Thank you, everyone.
Saying we're out.